Welcome again, Forever Family. Here we are again on another Tuesday. The weather's beautiful, sunshine's shining. We're out at the church property. We just want you guys to know that we miss you and we love you and that we're here for you. We have found another video, number three.
Tim Tebow. It's Tim Tebow, everybody.
Of Tim anyway, the football star.
Baseball.
Anyway.
He plays baseball now.
Oh, baseball, football. Anyway, sports guy. And we'll just call it that. And we'd like you to watch it. This one here is about serving. It's about what's on the inside. It's about you guys, you can serve now, still.
Okay, so watch this and we'll come back and talk about it in a minute.
Life is a journey. We succeed and we fail. In difficult seasons, our focus tends to be self-centered. We get so fixed on what others are telling us is important, it's easy to lose perspective. Sometimes we live so cautiously that we never really give God a chance to come through. You don't have to have a dream to play ball or rule the world. Just risk what you have for the sake of helping others and see what God does in your life and in the people around you. Believe. Take that step forward and put your journey in God's hands.
Every year, my foundation has a weekend where our whole goal is to raise money for our foundations and all of our initiatives to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need, to try to change the world for the better, to try to bring Jesus to this world and help those that are hurting. And this weekend really starts by having a celebrity gala. It's always so fun. There's a red carpet. Everybody gets dolled up, dressed up, brings out their best swag for it. The last few years, me and my brothers and some of my friends, we've had a bet. Who's gonna look the best? Who's gonna have the best swag, the best gear? And it really ends with us just sitting around and arguing about it and kind of making fun of each other. It's really not that big of a deal, but this year afterwards, I was kind of convicted of it because this is a weekend where we're coming together and looking nice on the outside so we can change the inside for thousands of people all over the world that have never been able to hear about a God that loves them, that don't know what hope looks like, that have never had someone care about them, and we're worried about who's got on a better tux and whose bow tie looks a little bit cooler. I mean, it was mine, let's just be honest about that. But this year it kind of put it into perspective. What are we really arguing about? Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. I want to share a passage with you that's one of my favorite passages because I think it puts into perspective what really matters. When you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the seat of honor. What if someone who is more distinguished than you has also been invited? The host will come and say, "Give this person your seat." Then you will be embarrassed and you have to take the seat which is left at the foot of the table. Instead, take the lowest place at the foot of the table. Then when your host sees you, he will come and say, "Friend, we have a better place for you." Then you will be honored in front of all the other guests. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then Jesus turns to the host and gives him an even more countercultural message. When you put on a luncheon or a banquet, don't invite your friends, brothers, relatives, and rich neighbors, for they will invite you back, and that will be your only reward. Instead, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Then at the resurrection of the righteous, God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. See, to me, this is all about perspective. Having the right perspective, not getting caught up in things that don't matter, not thinking of yourselves higher than you ought, but understanding that wherever you're at, God has a plan for you and He can use you, but not if you think that you're at the head of the table. But if you're willing to step back and say, okay, who's around here that I can serve, that I can lift up, that I can put ahead of me? A little over a year ago, my baseball team was heading to the gym one morning before we played the evening game, and this was really my chance to really put in my headphones and focus, get a good lift in, really think, get away from everybody. It's supposed to be private, but this session was not. Everybody working in the gym was doing the old, like, I'm not bothering you, but I'm sneaky taking a picture, or I'm videoing you. And then a couple minutes into it, they gained more courage. So now they're truly coming up to you and they're like, I'm sorry to bother you. And I'm like, no, you're not. And they're like, well, can we get a picture? Sure. And so then what was supposed to be a private workout was a meet and greet session, which I was not really happy about. And it was kind of irritating. This 45 minutes where I could train, where I could go to work and kind of not worry about everything else. So me and one of my teammates and one of my coaches, we leave early and we walk down the street to a Publix. And I walk into that Publix so frustrated, irritated. Gosh, I just want a couple minutes where I can just be by myself and get a workout in. But it's like, oh well. So I walk to the back of the store to get a protein shake and something to eat. And when I get to the back of the store, I see a mom and her son. Son's probably late high school, maybe early college, and I could see that he had special needs. And I've really had a heart for people with special needs ever since I was 15 years old, and I met a boy with his feet on backwards in the jungles of the Philippines that his village looked at him as cursed. And so ever since then, I've had a heart for people with special needs. And so I figured maybe I'm gonna try to walk by and maybe he'll notice me and I can encourage him or take a picture with him. But I walk by and obviously he doesn't notice me. He keeps his head on the ground and the mom doesn't notice me or say anything. So I was like, oh well. So go to the other end of the store and grab a few snacks, and then I go to check out and I could see they were in line, and so I stood behind them. Maybe they would recognize me again and I could encourage him, and they don't. But then all of a sudden, a lot of the workers at Publix and some of the other shoppers recognize me and they start coming up to me and asking for pictures and a few autographs, and next thing you know, instead of 2 or 3 people, it's 10, 12, 15 people. And so, I finish and I sign and take pictures with everybody, and finally I finish with the last person, and I turn back around and the mom kind of points at me and she says, what's your name? And I said, my name's Tim. And she said, what's your last name? And I said, Tim Tebow. And instantly she starts to cry and her jaw kind of drops. And she turns to her son and she turns him around and she said, son, this is the young man that loves you enough to throw a prom for you. He starts smiling and then he starts crying, and both of them start hugging me, and their tears lead me to crying, and the cashier at Publix is crying, and we finally stop crying, and I get a few minutes to talk to them and hear their story, and that he had been to the last 2 Night to Shines and just how it impacted his life, and how grateful she was, because as a mother of someone with special needs, how hard it can be. And even going to Publix, you never know when something is going to happen. And so just to be able to have that time where I could encourage them, but really be encouraged myself, because I walked into Publix so irritated and frustrated because it just wasn't going the way that I wanted. But meeting them and having the chance to hear their story and how my life was a part of their story, it was so encouraging that, wait a second, I gotta have perspective on what really matters. And it's not about being irritated because I can't get a few minutes by myself at a gym. It's about what really matters, what's important, having true perspective. You see, we never know when God's gonna do something amazing in our life, but we have to have our eyes open, being ready for the right perspective, because we never know behind the next door if that's when God is gonna do something special, if that's when God is gonna show up. And I remember walking out of that Publix, getting into an Uber with my teammate and my coach, and sitting there as we drive back to the hotel. And that's when I came up with the idea of writing this book, of doing this Bible study. This is the day. This is the day where God can show up, even if you don't know He's gonna show up, even if you're not ready for Him to show up, even if you're already irritated. And I think the God of this universe wants to use whatever you're going through, whatever it's frustrating, the obstacles, the disappointments. God will use it. He's a big God, and He's not a God that just performed miracles 2,000 years ago. I believe He wants to do that, and He is doing that today. And I believe He wants to do that in your life as well. But I think it takes us having the right perspective. This life isn't about what we put on the outside. It isn't about our suit. It isn't about our tux. It's not about how fancy we can be. It's about the lives that we can change on the inside. And how ultimately our goal should be to serve. because the God that we serve, he sent his son to serve us, taking on the form of a bondservant and being made in likeness of men. Jesus said, I'm going to come because I love you that much. And he came on a rescue mission for every single one of us. And he died so that we could live, but not so we can put ourselves at the front of the table and say, look at me. No, so we can say, you know what? I'm content because I know the God of this universe, so I'll sit at the foot of the table and I'll find those around me that I can serve, that I can love, that I can care about. And watch how much God will do in you and through you when we say, you know what? I'm content enough to say, I don't need to look fancy. I don't have to put it on the outside because I have it on the inside. And watch the people's lives that you can change around you. Because it's not about our fancy exterior. It's about what God's doing in the interior. And when he shows up in our lives, he's going to show out in our lives, and he can change so many lives through us.
Well, what'd you guys think of that? That was pretty awesome. Tim's talking about what's going on inside, and I just want to say this is that, you know, Centerpoint has a lot of great people that go to it, and we all try to serve, and there's always spots to be serving. The church property always needs help. You guys can contact me.
You know,
Lori always needs help.
You know, it's awesome because even though we're not allowed to meet together as a church, we are able to serve as a church. There's so many ways that you can serve. You know, look for your neighbor. Go, you know, help the elderly person. Go get groceries for somebody so they don't have to be exposed. How about, you know, come to the church property and mow the grass. That's a single person job. Don't have to be exposed. You just sit out in the sunshine and enjoy it. There's lots of ways to serve even without breaking the rules. So phase 1, they said light construction. That would be helping out at the property or doing other things. We got bark that's coming. We got bark delay. We got all kinds of things. So call him.
Probably Thursday. This Thursday. Bark, bark, bark.
So one of the things I love that Tim Tebow was talking about is that we always get distracted by the trappings of the outside, our houses, our cars, who has the best tux is what he said, the best bow tie. It's not about what we have, folks. It is not about whether I've got a nice new car. It's not about whether my house is 3,000 square feet or if it's 100 square feet. It's about our hearts. It's about serving God. It's about putting him first in our life. And that's what we got to do. We got to put God first. So stop looking at the outside and start looking at the inside.
Amen. Amen. That is so true. So we're going to see you tonight for a group.
7
You
o'clock.
guys all come and join us, right? Everybody out there, come and join us.
We're working on figuring out what phase we get to open CR back. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
We'll be letting you know.
I miss all you guys. So we'll see you next week, right? Talk to you guys later.
Bye, love you.
Bye.